Setting client boundaries isn't about saying no. It's really about creating clarity and fostering a more productive relationship by ultimately defining how you engage, when you're available, how quickly you'll respond. And you can ultimately free up your time while giving clients the structure that they need to succeed. All right. Hey, everyone. Darren and I today, in today's episode, we were discussing a powerful yet, really overlooked tool for agencies to be able to grow a sustainable business. And that is setting clear client boundaries. So many agency owners ultimately feel trapped with the client demands every day. Unpredictable schedules, the needing to feel like they are consistently available. But it really doesn't actually have to be this way. And so we want to talk to you about ways to go about setting these boundaries and being very clear about the expectations that you're setting up front, how you engage, your availability, your response times, and I'll help you be able to reclaim your time, be able to reduce that stress and improve your client relationships in the end as well. So we're going to go through talking about some structured ways about going about setting these boundaries and being very clear, but also share a couple of success stories and also cautionary tales that we have experienced both ourselves and with clients as well, allowing for them to be able to be in a much better, even symbiotic way with their clients and being able to just feel a lot more at ease. So to start off with, let's talk about just the base kind of pieces of it and how this actually plays out. The initial piece that I would say is that when a client doesn't understand where and how they should be engaging with you, they will just take. And that's true for pretty much every human relationship, really, right? Is that what's the idea? You give them a finger, they'll take your arm kind of scenario. And that's true with clients as well. And why wouldn't they? They are working with you in your agency because they need your help and they are being given more of you. And that's going to help them be able to grow faster. So why wouldn't they want that? It's in their better interest. And I don't think that most people do things out of their better interest. They're doing things that is going to make them better and be able to grow faster. And so I want us to be able to talk about how to go about setting those professional boundaries and being very clear, professional, ultimately, because they are clients, and be respectful to the relationship. But the cost that I see in not setting the boundaries is that they will call your cell phone on a Sunday evening. They will talk to you on Thanksgiving. They will be having conversations with you on Christmas Day. And that's not who you want to be talking to at the moment, as friendly as you are with them.
Yeah, even though as much as you like them, it's like, hey, listen, I do not want to be talking about work stuff when I'm with my family, unless it's like a 10-point fire emergency. And even then you have to define like these are the expectations, right? And I think that's with any relationship really is you need to just have that kind of offset discussion about, hey, these are the appropriate ways. And I feel like something as simple as just starting off the relationship with this is how to use this. This is how not to use this. This is when we're available. Really in general, the thing that you want to do is set the boundary and the offset and have people understand it and reinforce it, right? And just in your personal relationships, especially in your business relationships as well. But yeah, I think it's very key in how you do it is going to be ultimately what leads this to success or ultimately costing you a bunch of your time, your effort, your mental capacity, maybe your sanity. So definitely want to be very clear whenever you are having these conversations.
So let's talk about a couple of pieces and like what are the areas of boundary setting that are really needed, really. So the first piece that I would say is in the actual work that you're doing. One of the areas that causes for a lot of pain is where we end up feeling like we maybe set the wrong expectation in the work that we are doing. So we feel like we have to be doing more work or adding more deliverables or adding on additional milestones, additional revisions, and all of those types of things. And so to begin with, I want us to actually be very clear on how we actually articulate both our system, our process, our communication, and what is included and excluded. So one of the key components that I see that's really vital here that a lot of agencies miss out on is that in your proposal process, you should be listing out what exactly is included in the SOW and then what is not. So what are the limitations to what is included in your scope of work and for this project? And exactly what are the steps and stages, the milestones that are going to be going through this? And what are they responsible for? So as the agency, you're responsible for some things, but the client is also responsible. They're responsible for feedback. They're responsible for providing you with assets. They're responsible for providing you with data that allows for you to be able to do your work. And if they don't, then that delays the timeline. And the delay in timeline ultimately has a cost to your agency. So it thus should have a cost to the client. So being very clear on those parameters, I think, is vital.
Yeah, I think also just having something as simple as a checklist of like, these are the things that are included. And then as you're going through and doing the process of it, is like, hey, we have now delivered your copy. We have now delivered XYZ. We have now delivered this. And you are responsible for, we're waiting for your feedback on the copy. We're waiting for your feedback on, so that you can hold each other to that standard. Like having it in clear writing is something that is also, I mean, for me, when I have a service, it's very easy for me to hold people accountable to, like, hey, this is what you said you're doing, and this does not align with that. So I want to make sure that I'm getting all of the things that I am paying for, right? And then as
Right.
well as if I'm asking for more as a customer, and I'm saying, hey, you know what? Can we actually get 4 more revisions, 6 more revisions? You're like, hey, listen, I'm gonna have to charge you more for that. It's an easier conversation to have because you say, here, this is what we were supposed to be delivering. This is what we delivered to you. That is outside the scope. So for that, it's more easy for me to process like, oh, that's correct. Please give me the difference.
The estimated cost, yeah. The other thing that I think is useful for us to be clear on, and here's the cycle this isn't exclusive to just agency owners, but to everyone that works at the agency, is the communication availability. So how and which are you available to clients? So as an example, right, like I loathe text messaging. I also don't like to have to always feel like I'm being on and have to take in phone calls and things like that. So my calls are scheduled, every single one of them. And that allows for me to have clear understanding of the things that I have going on my plate, that I have the availability to choose the things that I'm focusing on. And so my availability is all predicated on me having a scheduled meeting with you. And you can absolutely do the same thing. But if you start to open up the parameters of, we now communicate with Slack, you also need to have WhatsApp, you also are communicating in Teams, and then you also communicate via text message, and then you will accept phone calls, and then you also have Zoom calls. And it's, what are the parameters by which you work with your clients? This is your business and you get to choose. The idea of always having to be on, responding to emails consistently, and always being available to them creates for this dynamic with them. And if you are responding to every email that they send within 5 minutes, they're going to expect, you're training them to expect this. So don't. I mean, there's a simple tool that you can do in Office 365 and in Gmail. You can, if you want to respond to the email, which I highly suggest against, within 5 minutes, you can schedule it to send at a different time so that they don't see you being consistently available that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. In my own personal experience, had a problem with that. Is like, oh, got an email in, need to respond to this email right then and there. Need to respond to this email right then and there. Need to be available. Need to be available. And I got nothing done in my day in terms of
Mhm.
like, I'm just trying to put out every fire, but I have these ongoing projects where I'm pushing and pushing, and not intentionally, but just because I'm always saying yes to all of the emails, and that feature definitely saved my butt a lot of times. It's like, okay, cool, let me just schedule these out. Sometimes I just have them all go out the next day at 9 o'clock. So people are like, wow, you guys are on top of everything. You're just so present and early in the morning. And like that is kind of funny to me. I was like, oh, I kind of saw this email last night, but just wanted to make sure I had a clear day. And then another thing where I thought you were actually going with it is communication internally for your company. So from the top to the bottom, as in like, who is able to give credence or whatever to out of scope work or things that the client is asking for, right? So your team needs to know what is also on the scope and what is they're actually able to say yes to or say no to, right? So if like a client is asking for additional work or things that are not in the original scope, that can cause a problem. It's like, well, Johnny said that you guys are going to be able to do this for me, or Johnny, and Johnny is a part of your company, so that now you feel like you have to honor it. Meanwhile, that costs you X amount of dollars and time, right? And so just having that clear communication in the chain of command, as well as like, oh, okay, well, if you're looking for outside or things that are outside the scope, go ahead and talk to the manager for this, right? And having your team even communicate that, like, I actually don't know that. Let me refer you to the account manager.
The other thing that I think would be really useful here is the recognition and understanding and just layering on what exactly is the expectation internally. You were talking about the availability for us, both internally in communication together, as well as the communication with the client. And one of the things that creates for this dynamic, so let's say that I have an expectation that I'm going to be responding to client emails within 24 hours. And yet the team is responding to emails within 20 minutes and they are feeling like things are incredibly urgent. And so it actually does two things. One, it creates for the client to not be sure what is a reasonable expectation to have in working with your agency, because it's going to be different depending on who they're communicating with. And two, it also has there's like this fear-based component that the team ultimately ends up feeling, that they have to be responding within a specific timeline. And it may be a false expectation, but an expectation nonetheless. And so making sure that we have a clear understanding of what is urgent, what is not urgent, how do we actually measure the level of urgency within things, and then what is the expectation from a response perspective. Like for us, as an example, we have clear communication timelines of when we expect to have responses within project management to each other, the length of time that we expect to respond back to things for clients, and how long that ultimately is. And so that each person is very clear of what the expectation is so we can manage against it. So I wanted to give you guys an example of a client that has gone from a place where they were really struggling in their communication and boundary issues that they were ultimately having, and then moving to a place that allowed for the structure to be the key to them being able to have greater freedom. And so this is the kind of typical archetype of an agency that felt like they were completely beholden to everything that was going on with the client. They were in this consistent fearful place that they were going to lose a client if they were not always there, always on, available to whenever they wanted, every single whim of the client, that they were going to ultimately be in a place where they had to just be entirely reactive, that their day from 9 to 6 was entirely to just be there for the client, be responsive to them. And the reality of it and the practicality of it was that the only time that they were able to do anything was after work hours. And that was the only focus time that they ultimately had. And so that meant that largely, if their eyes were open, they were working. There was no time for personal time. There was no time for anything else aside from responding to clients during daylight hours and then doing their work during off hours. And as they started to provide for greater frameworks and actually put into the things that we were talking about, from greater understanding in their SOWs of how they were engaging with clients, to clear weekly calls, structured calls that went through the SOW, what exactly were the decision pieces that they needed, clear project updates on how they were currently engaging with the client, and defined response times and clarity across the team, allowed for them to build more meaningful trust and allowed for the client's relationship to be better. The distinction, too, that I found incredibly interesting was that not only did the clients, the agency, have a whole lot more freedom and space in the way that they engaged with their client, but their relationship actually lasted longer too. Their client retention went up. Their client attrition, obviously, the inverse, went down. And they were able to make more money with those clients, and they respected them a ton more because they were clear of exactly how to engage. They understood the rules of engagement.
Yeah, I think that also just kind of reinforces it. Like, if I understand how we're working together, if I understand what is the flow of our relationship, it's going to last longer, right? If I know what I can do, what I can't do. And also, one thing that you said that I like that they did is they reinforce it weekly, right? So it's like, hey, this is the cadence of what we're doing. This is how we're engaging. This is how we're going to continue to engage, right? Because then you can continue to build upon the relationship as well. It's like, hey,
Mm.
we can continue to do this. Oh, actually, I'm thinking about next steps. This is how we can do it. And this is how we can continue to engage and continue to and keep our relationship flowing. And I think that's really just going to be key, is just having that consistency and having that ability to continue to connect in a way that is meaningful for you as well as your client, right? Lets them know that you're on top of things and you guys can be seen as a reliable source of like, okay, this person is going to do the things that they say they're going to do, as well as hold me to a higher standard for what I am trying to better myself in, whether that be my client engagement or whether that be getting more eyes on our business. I know that they are doing what they say they're going to do.
So I want to give you guys a cautionary tale as well. And rather than it being vis-a-vis a client, I'm actually going to allow myself to be the cautionary tale. Several years ago, I want to say it's 5, 6 years ago, there was a client that I got pretty heavily invested in myself. And the thing that I foundationally really care about is that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to make sure that it happens. And I am not a person that likes to fail, not that anyone really enjoys failing. So I had really leaned in. And so I had given of a lot of my personal time. There was many instances where I would have conversations with this individual on the weekends. There was several instances where I would be at dinner and walk away and have a conversation. There was just so many examples of this. And as time went on, the client became more and more entitled to me and my time. That if I didn't answer calls, if I wasn't available, if I didn't make time in that day for them. Didn't matter what other things I had going on, that they wouldn't be happy. Up until the point, and Darren was on the call when this happened, and ultimately when the relationship ended, was that this particular client showed up to the meeting 30, 45 minutes late. And I even at the time had a rule that if a client shows up more than 5 minutes late, that I wouldn't sit there, I would cancel the call and reschedule. But I didn't with this particular person. And I allowed this particular individual to overstep my own boundaries. And in this conversation, I let them know that I had another meeting coming up, and he demanded that I stay on that call. I said that unfortunately I've got another call, I've got to go, and continued to reinforce that he demanded that I stay on the call with him. I let him know that I'm sorry, but I wasn't able to do that. And then he said something along the lines of that we were going to need to revisit our relationship if I were to leave the call. And I told him he was right, and that I had reconsidered the relationship, and I don't think that it's a good fit, and that we will be ending the relationship. And the thing that, one, it was both validating to me in choosing, recognizing that this wasn't a healthy relationship anymore, but two, it was my fault entirely. There was no one else to blame but me. I was the one that allowed for this to happen. I was the one that allowed for those boundaries to be crossed. I was the one that, even though there was so many examples where I would have advised directly against the things that I was doing, I did them and I suffered for it. I'm still proud of the work that we did with this particular client, but I shouldn't have done it. And the piece that I would say for me personally, that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned in it, was that I had become so personally involved that at this point I was truly personally offended by this as well when this happened, because I had given so much of myself and so much of my personal time to this relationship and to this client. And I'm sure if you've ever had a scenario the same, that we end up in this place where that person becomes so entitled to us, and it's not fair, it's not reasonable, it's not rational, but again, our fault.
So I'm really glad that you brought this example up. I feel like this was personally one of my favorite moments in my tenure here. I've been here for a long time, and I've had a lot of highlights. And I feel like all of my highlights are whenever you're holding a boundary for a client. And it just shows the authenticity, whether clients are trying to do something that is you feel like is shady, or whether you feel like is could be illegal, whether it feels like they are pushing a line that should not be crossed. You're quick to say, let me inform you, this is not the type of practice that we are going to be a part of. And I feel like at that moment, at that time, you did see the kind of devaluing of how this client saw us as a help for his agency, right? And so, I mean, even from where they started off as going defunct, hey, we need your help, desperate, dire need, in all types of debt. And we were able to help raise them to a part where they're top 3% of agencies, very profitable. You're saving basically their life at that point. And with the kind of work that we were able to do with that agency at that time. And so it's like, oh, okay, great. We have this great relationship, and you definitely poured your heart and soul into doing the work with
Mm-hmm.
them. And then I don't know where, I don't know when, it just took a turn in terms of like, hey, I need this, this, and this. I need this. I need more. I need more. I need more. Right. And where it feels like it's sort of like a greed. So I don't know what it was. And it just from a perspective of, and I know me and the rest of the team were looking at it like, this is odd. Like, we're doing so much for you already, and we're doing more than we should be doing, in fact, just to make sure that you guys are in a place where you can survive and thrive. Like, this is us. Like, when we say that we care about agencies and pour our heart and soul and making people successful, that was one of the prime examples that I would use is like, hey, listen, we have been able to get people from their lowest point to one of their highest points. And just because we care, right? We hear their stories, we meet them, we break bread with them. That client in particular, we taking trips in the cold snow just to hang out with them and get them on the right track and put them in the right place.
And
And
we're from
then
Southern California, mind you.
yeah. And then you're gonna treat us like this. And so I'm sitting in on the meeting, and I was like, okay, we're doing this new process, and late and just disrespectful from the start. And I'm just like, if I were in control of the meeting, I would have shut it down. Right. And then at a certain point, I think our minds just kind of connected, and you're like, okay, we're not doing this. I'm sorry. Like we're letting this go. And as soon as we hung up the call, I walked out, which is when we had an office, and I was like, guys, you won't believe what just happened. I'm so excited. Like, and there was like a sigh of relief amongst the team because not setting boundaries, like it affects everybody in your team, right?
Yeah,
And
it
so
did.
like it raised the morale instantly. It wasn't like a thing where we were suffering. It was more so oh, okay, I don't care how large of a client they are, like they're not going to disrespect us, disrespect what we stand for, right? And then so just moments like those are the kind of key moments that not only gets you your dignity back, but also your team as well. Like it raises their awareness, their pride of being an agency. And then another example is just when clients are disrespectful to the team, you are like the first advocate of like, you're not going to disrespect my team. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think this is. I'm sorry. Well, I will let you go instantly.
It's even in our contracts. 100%. Well, thank you for saying that, Darren. It definitely was an interesting relearning of lesson for me in that specific client. I want to kind of wrap up a couple of just like key pieces that I want to make sure that you guys walk away with some tangible pieces aside from learning from my own experience. So the piece that I would say is that I want you to start early in setting the boundaries. Make sure you do it in the sales calls. Make sure you do it in onboarding. Make sure you're doing it in kickoff calls. Make sure it's included in your agreements and the proposals. Make sure that you consistently enforce that boundary. Take from my cautionary tale and make sure that they understood, because I did those initial pieces, but I allowed them to lax. And so make sure that you continue to enforce those boundaries and stick to them. And make sure that you communicate. A boundary doesn't need to be negative. A boundary can absolutely be more positive. So it's the thing that we are doing here is making sure that we are able to focus our attention on you when we're meeting with you. And so we don't want to have, the communication frameworks that we utilize allow for us to spend dedicated time with each one of our clients so that you're the only one that we're focused on in that given moment. And so just allowing for them to understand why it is impactful and positive to them. And I would also say that we're all human, as I'm reminded every day, but I was reminded in that moment of the story that I was telling you. And leverage your project management tools, have your team be the enforcer for it as well when we're weak, and make sure that you just stay as organized as you possibly can, allowing for you to be able to be in a much better place. Setting client boundaries isn't about saying no. It's really about creating clarity and fostering a more productive relationship by ultimately defining how you engage, when you're available, how quickly you'll respond. And you can ultimately free up your time while giving clients the structure that they need to succeed. With strong boundaries in place, you not only build better relationships, but also create the space to grow and lead your agency with confidence, with your team behind you. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening in today. With all of the shifts in the industry, it is easy to feel overwhelmed or unsure of your next move. So I'm not here to try to sell you anything. I just want to give back and guide you through the uncertainty. Whether you're navigating new trends or just need some clarity, we're here to listen and offer advice. Head to creativeagencysuccess.com/chat to book a free 50-minute chat with an agency mentor who can provide you with a fresh perspective. Let's figure out the best steps for your agency's growth together.